Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mary Chance with the Consortium of Florida Education Foundations, and we have Tracy Berger and Chris Clore with us. We are going to spend the next hour together learning about some work that a number of our local education foundations have been doing the last couple years that we're excited to all learn from together and share with you today. So our webinar today, the topic is Teacher Leadership and Development, what we've learned from local education foundation pilot projects. Can everybody hear me okay? Those of you who are not muted. Housekeeping wise, we have about 30 people from around the state expected today to join us, and a number of them are local education foundation leaders or teacher leaders or school district personnel who've been working on these projects over the last couple of years. So we're going to open up the line a little later for questions and discussion, and we wanted to specifically ask a few folks to share during our hour together, but just for background noise, we're going to keep the lines of most participants muted for now until we open it up at the end of the hour for questions, or near the end of the hour. I also want to share that we are going to record this session and archive it for the benefit of future local education foundation folks and their partners on the local level who may want to embark on this work and learn from what we've learned through these pilot projects over the past couple of years. So a little bit of perspective to get us started. Local education foundations in Florida have a 30-year history. In fact, we just celebrated Betty Castor, who was education commissioner when local education foundations were established and rolled out in Florida in the 80s. And throughout that history, about, I would say, up to half of their work is what I would call teacher-facing. But it generally has looked like the things you see listed here. Classroom grants for teachers, giving them funds to do something innovative in their classroom or to step in the gap of what they need in terms of materials or resources for their students. Teacher resource stores. So there's a picture of one in the middle. I think that's Hillsborough store. And you know, millions of dollars in inventory going into the hands of teachers so that they're not always reaching into their own pocket to support their teaching habit, as it were. Teacher recognition events, Teacher of the Year, galas, all of those events. Of the $64 million our folks raise, and we have about 64 education foundations, so almost all of the 67 countywide school districts, I would say about 40% of it is in these buckets or is teacher facing, and it typically looks like these types of activities, which are valued and important and, you know, great resources for teachers all over the state. Our question, given that history and that valuable sort of relationship and established relationship over time with teachers, we a couple years ago, actually, our partners at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation challenged us to think about how we might leverage those relationships and support teachers in new ways. And here are the things that we were talking about and kind of what prompted us to think about perhaps supporting teachers in new ways. We all know, most of us know, that on the local level, we've been expecting teachers to make some pretty significant instructional shifts in terms of how they're teaching and facilitating learning in the classroom with the adoption of the more rigorous Florida standards. Not just that they're more rigorous, but the way we're hoping and expecting teachers or students to really learn is different than it looked back in my day. And that requires a different skill set and a different way of planning lessons and delivering instruction and working with students. So, you know, we made that shift to these new standards. We, you know, talked about new curriculum and materials, but classroom observations, surveys, and student work indicates that we really haven't made the total shift that we would like to see in terms of how teachers are teaching and how students are engaging with material in the classroom. So that was a big sort of learning that came to us a few years ago, and something we were all kind of grappling with. You know, it's important, certainly as a baseline, to recognize excellent teachers. It's also important to make sure they have the supplies and the basic items they need. And it's also important to, a motivated teacher who is willing to apply for a grant to do something over and above with their students to support that. But, what can we do to help teachers learn and grow and make those changes, whether they're established or newer teachers? We also are hearing increasingly about teacher retention as a top concern of districts, with some reports telling us that up to 40% of new teachers are leaving their classrooms after 5 years. We also have heard in different reports that about half of our teachers never get a chance to see their colleagues in action. And now we know we have data to really define highly effective practices that are happening in classrooms all over the state. And that what's happening there in terms of being seen and experienced by colleagues in real world, real-time situations, those opportunities are not happening enough. We hear that from teachers that they want pathways for leadership that don't always involve them leaving the classroom. Certainly sometimes they do, or teachers can switch, or in some districts around the country, there are hybrid roles for teachers. But I've heard from Teachers of the Year that, when they are recognized and they sort of are elevated in their school district, there are very clear paths for them to leave the classroom and work in other areas, but not so much staying in the classroom and continuing to grow themselves and to help their colleagues grow and learn. And then finally, there's this myth that there are born teachers, and maybe it's not a myth, maybe there are born teachers, but we also know that just like any of us in our professions, that we learn and grow. And we know we're facing a teacher shortage in our state, and we don't believe we can necessarily hire teachers who are going to have ready to go and have all the skills and have perfected their professional craft. We believe we have an opportunity, though, to help existing teachers and new teachers improve, and to provide at the same time fulfilling leadership opportunities in collegial communities of teachers. And I think I made that sentence a little awkward there, sorry about that. But that we have that opportunity to help all teachers grow, and in the process provide leadership opportunities for teachers who really have practices worth showcasing and worth sharing with their colleagues. So we were issued that challenge of thinking about how we might step into this arena through our network of local education foundations and try some pilot projects by our partners at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And then shortly after that, or 1 year into our work that we'll describe in just a moment, Wells Fargo stepped up and supported us further. So before we go any further and tell you about the projects that we've had going on through these pilots in the last 2 years, I want to ask Radha with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to give a few words of welcome. Radha, are you with us, or Key?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
I can.
Hi, thank you so much, Mary. Hello, everyone, and thank you for the invitation to be part of this webinar. Really excited to see, the results and sort of the deep dive into this particular project that we're super excited to have been able to support. CFEF has been a tremendous partner of ours even prior to my taking over the K-12 work in our state, in the state of Florida. So really excited about the work you all are doing, how you're supporting the local foundations, and how you're thinking about the work at both the state and local level. And we're really excited to see how the work can continue to support teachers, leaders, and students alike across the state, and really kind of bridge the equity gap in education that we really want to support as part of our work in the state. So we'll leave it at that. Just really excited to be a part of the continued partnership with CFEF. And I don't know if Ki Vu, my colleague, is on the phone or on the webinar.
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Ki.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to join. I've probably have the standing as the longest running program officer for the foundation working in Florida, having worked with Hillsborough County Public Schools, having worked with the Florida Association of District School Superintendents, supporting a number of networks of districts collaborating together to really find ways to support teachers in implementing the new standards. And I think from the very get-go, we recognized the tremendous change that teachers were experiencing in the classroom, and we felt I think both the challenge and an opportunity to support districts in I think leveraging the most important asset that they have in their systems, which is the teaching force. And so I think these investments and our partnership with CFEF played a major part in really, I think, lifting up the importance of supporting teachers, teacher leaders, to have a voice in conversations happening at their state level, at the district level, and also on the ground in terms of the supports they receive in order to be successful for students across the state. And so really excited about this effort and look forward to learning more.
Thank you, Radha and Key. And when we share the program model in a few minutes, what I want to share with you with our Gates partners is they are working deeply through school districts and through a variety of supports. When they issued a challenge to us to, hey, what could you do to develop an opportunity for your network, to some of them to help teachers learn and grow and develop their colleagues and their own practices at the same time, they really gave us a tremendous amount of freedom and to really think that through and reach out to teacher leaders and help develop something that, and give it a catchy tongue twister name that it's now become part of our lexicon. And it's pretty exciting to have had that opportunity to just be issued a challenge and say, you guys are doing great work. You're supporting teachers in so many ways. What do you think about helping teachers help one another learn and grow and improve their classroom instructional practices? And that was a wonderful challenge to be issued. And so we're really excited to share with everyone what we've learned. We also have with us Kate Wilson with Wells Fargo, who you'll hear the story of a little segue that's happened over the past year, but longtime supporter of the work of local education foundations and our statewide organization. But they said yes to an opportunity to sort of complement the work we were already doing and expand it. And I want to ask Kate to say a few words as well.
Thanks, Mary. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. I love it when technology works. Good afternoon, everyone. And thanks so much for inviting me to join this call this afternoon with y'all. It's really a pleasure. And it's a pleasure, I want to say, that I'm representing Wells Fargo and our over 13,000 team members in the state of Florida. Want to thank all of you all on the phone for all that you do and your commitment to education and making a difference in the lives of our youth. And like as Mary said, we've been longtime partners with CFEF. We support all of our local education foundations across the state where we have team members present. And that's really exactly why we decided to make this investment in the Fostering Teacher Leadership Grant Program in 2018, and again for this coming year. We know that when our students are successful, when they have great teachers, and we're really interested in helping teachers with their ongoing development in their practice. And as I said, we've been longtime supporters of CFEF, and we love the idea of working with the consortium on this project and giving some of our local education foundations the time and space to be innovative and to also complement the traditional professional development that's going on and led by districts. So it fits in perfectly with our giving strategy. We focus primarily on education and community development in Florida. Last year, we were able to give $12 million throughout the state to over 1,300 nonprofits. About $3.5 million of that went directly to education. So we certainly understand its importance and value what you all do, and it's our pleasure to continue working with you. So I'll turn it back to you, Mary.
Thank you, Kate. Okay, so we can flip to the next slide now. So I think you might have heard Kia a moment ago talk about teacher leadership roles on a state level and in policy. And there's a lot of definitions of teacher leadership and a lot of routes to it that, you know, people can talk about with teachers. We sort of needed to frame out what we thought we wanted to do and where we thought we had the opportunity through our network. So we crafted this first initiative you're going to learn about with these basic principles. We are complementing, we don't have by any stretch with a $100,000 pilot project. We know we're not, you know, displacing or replacing the millions of dollars that are spent in traditional professional development with this type of initiative, or certainly a pilot initiative. We also thought we had an opportunity to develop something that was organic and really a voluntary process that teachers can opt into when they're ready and they want to form, they want to, you know, grow and reach out and help their peers develop. We know that evaluation is happening, obviously, and we know that observations are happening in classrooms, and we wanted to provide opportunities that were non-evaluative, couldn't be perceived as punitive among teachers as peers. And we thought and we hoped that maybe we could introduce something as a new body of work or opportunity. And I don't mean to say there weren't communities happening sometimes through education foundations, maybe a Golden Apple Academy or some type of professional learning, but this type of peer-to-peer community, you know, wasn't being done very often through our network. So we were interested in whether or not we could develop something that might lead to ongoing work, either by the local education foundation and or serve as an incubator or pilot or somehow inform the district's offerings for teachers in their district. And that was important. You know, could there be a time when some education foundations said, you know, in addition to classroom grants and teacher of the year, we're going to own this type of work and look for funding and support and work with our district to provide peer-to-peer learning and sharing among teachers and leadership opportunities for teachers. So those were our basic sort of principles. And then in terms of a teacher leader themselves, again, lots of possible definitions out there, but we are focused on teachers who, with this work right now, are currently teaching and they're collaboratively leading their colleagues in improving their practice. So they're not in an administrative role right now. They're in the classroom and they're interested in positively impacting classrooms other than their own. Those are the main aspects of teacher leadership. And certainly there's other things it can lead to once somebody steps out there and you widen the pool of teacher leaders. But those are the things we were really focused on. Our question, and we did learn through research by TNTP and other national partners, you know, what research says teachers say they want and value from, and it looks strangely similar to what I value in my professional development. Some of the top responses were teachers value job embedded professional development and coaching, feedback based on classroom observations, collaboration opportunities with their other teachers, and again, leadership opportunities that don't mean that they're giving up their classroom teaching gig. So that's our question. Could we provide that structure, space, and time for teachers to learn and grow together? And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Programs, Tracy Berger, to tell you what that initial work looked like in peers and public practice.
Thanks, Mary. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, peers and public practice. Knowing what we understood about what teachers want in professional development, knowing what our education foundations could do and we're trying to do with teacher professional development, Peers in Public Practice was developed. It was pretty exciting when we started it out. Pretty exciting to have freedom to allow our education foundations to kind of figure out how it would work in the context of peer-to-peer learning in the classroom with teachers and being able to debrief and talk about it later. So we, in 2016, 17, and then in 17, 18, we funded 15 projects total in 15 different districts. And we had projects, as you can see in the map, all over the state on lots of different types of projects. Like Bradford County, some of their teachers were trained in using Eureka Math, but they wanted to expand that throughout the district. So they used our P3 model to do that in their district. And so now it's district-wide, and they're doing some more work in a P3 type of training for teachers, but outside of the math program. Some folks are targeted like low-performing schools, got some high-performing teachers involved to be the teacher leader, have some observers come in the low-performing schools to try and boost those teachers' impact in the classrooms. Some used, Pinellas did pre-K classrooms, so they did it with a pre-K system. Some used past teachers of the year as teacher leaders. So lots of different ways that our foundations utilize this program to really see how it would work, what would work in their districts. And really what it is they set up a kind of a schedule, if you will. They found some highly effective teachers in their district in certain areas, like I said, lots of different areas. Set up a schedule, asked other teachers to come in if they wanted to learn and see what was being done in the classroom with these highly effective teachers, learn from them in the classroom while they were teaching with students in them, and then come back out and say, hey, this is what I learned. Hey, I have questions about what you did here. Talk about that with the teacher leader, have a discussion with other observers about how it might work in their classrooms. And then they were able to take it back into their own classrooms and utilize some of those things they learned and techniques and strategies. And, I tell you, we've got tremendous feedback that first year and second year in this program about just what teachers were saying about how refreshing it was for them to be able to go in there and see actually somebody doing something similar that I could really make work in my classroom and see an impact. So we funded different things, mostly substitutes, and offered teacher leader stipends if the district or the foundation wanted to do that. Any debriefing costs for refreshments or group activities and travel, et cetera. So that's kind of how we started it. Kind of, again, let the foundations figure out how they wanted to manage it at the district level, at their own level. And so we did the teachers had to really say that they would do a pre-survey and a post-survey after their experience in the P3. And these are just two of the responses we got, two of the questions. So ask them really about if they've ever been part of a kind of a P3 type program before in the professional development, and before and after, and just to kind of get a sense of who had been part of this type of a program before. And you see there's a little bit of a gain in teachers being a part of this type of a professional development activity. And then the pie chart that says that 94% of participants say that P3 continues to have a positive impact on instructional practice. That question was asked 4 to 6 weeks after their last debrief session. So they're still using it in the classroom well after the professional development opportunity was got to them. Other responses were that 81% of participating teacher observers tried new instructional strategies as a result of their experience with P3. And 92% helped to develop ongoing, the P3 experience helped them develop ongoing relationships with colleagues, which I think is very, very powerful for teachers to be able to talk to each other and work collegially with each other. So really good responses from these teacher surveys. So we know teachers loved it. Hear lots of different stories from teachers. So I wanted to go, we have a couple of folks on the line that have, from the foundations that have, are going to talk with us about their individual projects in their district. And I'd like to bring on Amy Snyder from Collier, Champions for Learning. Will you tell us, Amy, are you there?
Yes. Yep. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yes, great. Could you tell us kind of what your experience, what you heard from the teachers after they participated in this P3 project? And I know that Collier had done some work with teachers in the past. So, and tell us how this was different and what you heard that was different from your teachers.
Sure. Well, this was the first project that I worked on. So I joined the staff here last summer and immediately said, we're writing this grant proposal. So nothing like jumping in with both feet, right? So Champions has done a lot of work in various ways with teachers in the past through our Golden Apple process, through inquiry-based learning, through all sorts of things. And this was a little bit different in that, number one, we were partnering right off the bat with the district. So we are separate from our school district. And so a lot of what we've done has been in cooperation with, but we've done it ourselves. So this was a partnership, which presented a few challenges in what did they want versus what we were hoping to achieve. And of course, like everyone else, we got the added benefit of Hurricane Irma in the middle of everything. So best laid plans were kind of shifted. So we kind of went into this not knowing how it was going to play out. The original structure was 6 schools. They were partnered with I'm hearing an echo, so I don't know if everyone else is hearing the echo.
No, you're good, Amy.
Okay, all right. So 3 schools who had been low performing on reading scores were partnered with 3 schools that were higher performing. And so they would be visiting those schools twice throughout the year. And the teachers really didn't know what they were doing because we didn't have the opportunity to roll it all out together with our expectations up front because of the hurricane. So it was a little bit of a free-for-all, and the teachers loved it. Our visiting teachers, number one, were thrilled that they could spend half a day or a full day out of their school just soaking in what their colleagues were doing. And the first session for all 3 partners was very focused on the reading strategies. But then they requested for the second one, could they see other things? Could they see math? Could they see science? And the visiting teachers, visiting schools principals made it possible for us to have a little peek into that, even though our focus was the reading. They gave that little peek for the teachers. And the experience went way beyond just the reading skills and techniques. It was about classroom culture. It was about how the teachers related to each other, how they related to their administrative staff. And all of that came out in the debrief session. So we were able to do an hour debrief over lunch after each of the 6 sessions. And it was super valuable for everybody. The teachers, the visiting teachers, the lead teachers, everybody loved it. The principals loved it. They just felt like this was a fresh experience for them, and they have asked for more. They're like, when can we do that again? So.
Thank you, Amy. We could hear you perfectly, but if you've got a different microphone around you, you might turn it off so you don't have to hear an echo when you talk a little bit more.
Okay.
Thanks. So, you know, Amy described a situation where they worked with the district, closely with the district, and, you know, they took charge of it, but the district was involved in what they were doing and approved it, so to speak. Some foundations didn't manage it that way. They asked the district, they said, we're not going to be involved in it. If you want to try something out, that's fine. For instance, Alachua County, and we'll have Rachel share in a little bit, but their district didn't really want to be involved in it, so the foundation took it on as in one high school, and they've expanded it, I think, ever since, at least in some way or form or another, because the teachers, there was such great feedback from the teachers. So you can have, and I think in Broward County there was heavy district involvement. The curriculum folks were deeply involved in how this went out, how this was rolled out as well. So it really was rolled out very differently in different districts. Thank you, Amy. I'd like to ask Linda in Brevard. Are you on, Linda? Linda?
Hello? Hello,
Hi,
can you
Linda.
hear me?
Yep,
Yes.
we got you.
Okay.
An echo. But could you tell us about your P3 program in Brevard, how that was rolled out and what the feedback was in your district?
Sure. This year, we decided to do it a little differently, and we've been focusing in Brevard between the Brevard Schools Foundation and the our professional development department on improving teacher retention. So I myself, I represent this staff development specialist for the professional learning department, worked with Janice Kershaw, president of our Brevard Schools Foundation. And we got together and we had some conversations on how we could really provide some strong networking opportunities with professional development for our new teachers. And we came up with the idea of teacher meetups. And basically, teacher meetups are forward-thinking programmed, and it was aimed at extending our teacher convening experience and enhancing our teacher retention by providing collegial communities where teachers could gather in informal environments, support each other, share ideas, and really build that enthusiasm for teaching. So we started with the group of teachers that had attended our teacher convening, and there were approximately 85 new teachers we invited to our ESIT in January. And I took that list and I sent it out, and I put out an invitation for anyone who would like to join these meetups. And we ended up having about 39 people accept the invitation. So I myself, and working with Janice, we divided up our county. It's a really large county, and we have North, Central, Beachside, and South. And we divided up the meetups into those areas and invited people based on demographics. So I grouped the North area schools together, Central, Beachside, and South area schools together because of the communities where they live, similar student demographics. And then we actually had our meetups at different restaurants throughout the county. And those meetups were facilitated along with our Teachers of the Year, because part of my job too is to provide leadership opportunities for Teachers of the Year in our district. So we have a Teacher Leadership Council, and through that council we invited anyone who would like to facilitate the meetings. And before the meetings started, I met with the facilitators, and we basically sat down and talked about what different types of topics and conversations would really promote that teacher motivation, inspire teachers, support them. And we decided that we were going to use our goals of ESIT and the professional development that these teachers attended during the ESIT teacher convening. So the topics for each of our meetups, we had 3 of them in February, March, and April, centered around the professional development that was presented at ESIT. So is there any questions so far?
You're talking about your teacher meetups that you've done this last year, right?
We just finished them, correct? Yes.
So the year before you did peers in public practice, though, is that correct?
We did. I was not part of that. Janice Kershaw worked that with another person within our district. So that was the previous year, and this year we used the money. Well, I'm understanding it because Janice is the one that was working on this grant, but instead of continuing that practice, we kind of rolled it out in the teacher meetups this year. So as a continuation of the peers in practice. And we found it so valuable because our issues are retaining new teachers. And with the group that we had in these particular meetups, really focusing on their classrooms, their classroom environments, what their needs were, where they needed support. It was really great. And I sent out a survey for all the new teachers, and I have some feedback, and hoping as we continue into the fall to find out go back into the classrooms of some of these teachers that have attended the meetups and see how many we've actually retained in our district.
Great. And that all started with the P3 because that worked so well in your district. Thank you, Linda.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So that's a great segue into what we learned that first year from the 7 or the 8 projects that were completed, the peers in public practice projects that were completed. that these districts are saying, what next? You know, we did this peers in public practice. Our teachers love it. We want to know what next. What do we do next? How do we continue this great momentum we have with teachers? And sure, we can do some more peers in public practice. In some instances, the district kind of took on that role of convening those. So we were asked that, and then you know, Wells Fargo stepped up to say, you know, we want to continue that work too in a little deeper level with fostering teacher leadership. And the whole premise of that was to allow these teachers to develop deeper, meaningful relationships and communities with other teachers, and help, you know, continue that teacher leadership development and advance their role, Education Foundation's role in this area. So thanks to Wells Fargo, we were able to do that this past year, 2017-18, with 4 districts or foundations who had participated in the initial P3 year. And those were Alachua, Brevard, Polk, and Santa Rosa County.
And Tracy, this is Mary. Just before we get into those, so just to make it real clear, you know, you got to think back 2 years. 2 years ago, most of our folks hadn't really thought about finding their way in teacher leadership and development. So that first work, what you're hearing is some folks in Collier, you know, very independent with the district. They've been convening districts or teachers on their own in a variety of ways with roundtables and, you know, growth opportunities, linking them with community partners, certainly thousands and thousands of dollars in classroom grants. They've been doing that. And other places, and then they had to figure out how they would work with the district and navigate, you know, offering the peers in public practice in school during the school day learning opportunity. And then others worked more closely with their district and worked through the professional development department and figured it out that way, such as in Bradford County, where they said, you know what, we want to see what's happening with this Eureka Math curriculum, and we want other teachers to learn from one another about how they're implementing it. That's how they rolled it out, even though they're also an independent foundation, but they picked a curriculum area. Still others, the district said, you know, we're running around doing 12 million things. This sounds interesting, but, you know, craft it on your own. And that was the approach that Alachua took of going to a principal and trying it. And they picked a school and a principal that was an area of town that wasn't typically engaging and hosting other teachers, and they embraced the opportunity. And Rachel can chime in and tell you what that led to after a while. But so that it's just fascinating to me that first year of the 15, you know, about half of them were in year 1, completed their project, and were chomping at the bit to offer something more for teachers. Certainly the day or the days were great, but where do we go from here? And that's the context for this work of how do you, like the meetups in Brevard, how do you, you know, continue fostering leadership opportunities and those collegial communities of teachers.
Okay. So I'd like to ask Rachel from Alachua to talk about their fostering teacher leadership program, Learning Lab, how that went, what they did, their feedback from teachers. Rachel, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Rachel.
Okay, awesome. And I believe that we're also joined by Bessie Crishoni. She is a member of our Alachua County Public Schools professional development staff. I think we're trying to locate her so we can unmute her as well. But we really, I know we're sort of moving on to talk about Learning Labs, but I do just want to kind of reiterate just how powerful Peers in Public Practice was in Alachua County, and it really was powerful for our foundation to really kind of change the way we were thinking about the way that we engaged with professional development and teachers in our district. And we had 2 very successful pilots, one at the high school, one at the elementary school level. And so when we found out about the fostering teacher leadership opportunity, we were able to go, we went to our professional development department at the district with the 2 ladies that are there, and we're able to kind of sit down and talk through what we had done with Peers in Public Practice and found out that there were a lot of similarities with P3 and a little bit of work that they were already doing in what they called learning walks, which was allowing teachers to shadow one another, but it was within their own school. And so P3 kind of brought that element of getting to another, a school even across the district. And so based on research that they had done with what our Alachua County teachers were looking to, what they wanted out of professional development, of course, like Mary mentioned, they wanted it to be job embedded. They wanted to be shadowing other, shining teachers in the district. And they also were really interested in more virtual opportunities. And so we used this opportunity to kind of co-write the grant for the Fostering Teacher Leadership Grant, which was really, it was kind of the first time we've been able to co-write something together, and was really exciting. And I'm so excited to be kind of on the back end of this year and reading all the feedback from the teachers and just knowing that it really truly was impactful. And so it was similar to a P3 model in the fact that we had teachers come from all over the district, and we had certain host schools, and we did it 2 different times this spring. But what was unique about it was the teachers, we were targeting kind of second and third year, early on teachers, not necessarily in their first year, but, how can we continue to support them after year 1? And so we had them come to the school, and then they shadowed the teacher, but then while the teacher was, teaching, they were also being videotaped. And so it allowed us not only to reach the folks that were in on the day of, seeing the teacher in their classroom, and then there was also a debrief element that happened at school. Those debrief sessions were also videotaped, and then that was made available to the folks in the entire district. And then we also, another goal that our professional development team had was to try to engage teachers better over Twitter chats. And I know there's some districts in Florida, and I'm sure others, but that do a really great job of connecting with their teachers on Twitter. And so that was something that our Alachua County team really wanted to try to incorporate. And so also as part of the Learning Labs project, some of the teachers that were our exemplary teachers, that were the ones that were being observed, had some nights where they spent on Twitter using the I think it was hashtag ACPS Teach. And so they were available to kind of talk about the experience, but then also answer questions of anyone that maybe was there in person, or also anybody that had watched it online. And our hope was that teachers that had, just to kind of continue the conversation outside the classroom, and also kind of tie into being able to offer more of the digital learning opportunities with it being videotaped, and also being a part of the Twitter chat, which this was the first school year where they were starting to really implement, or trying to implement, regular Twitter chats. We also, and I don't know, I'll pause real fast and see if Betsy, if we were able to find her and unmute her. I don't think so. And so one of the things, if you can see on the slide, so the slide has a screenshot of the different Twitter, the Twitter chat or part of it, and you see the teachers interacting with each other, as well as our Alachua County Public Schools Professional Development Department, and they were just able to kind of go back and forth and talk about different things that happened in the classroom. I think one of the of the participants, 90% said that they would participate again if it was offered again, and 100% stated that it provided them an opportunity to positively connect and collaborate with colleagues. And really, that's what we want to see. That's why we did it. It was really, it's been a really interesting 2 years of kind of working in this teacher professional development space a little bit more closely, and it's really, especially the Peers in Public Practice, with kind of provided a starting point and a jumping off point. And then once we really kind of understood what it took to be involved in the teacher professional development space, it really allowed us to form really great connections. I really cannot say enough about our professional development department here in Alachua County. The ladies have been so willing to work with us, and even outside of the Fostering Teacher Leadership project, we've worked together on a number of other projects that I feel have really added value to the professional development offerings in Alachua County and really helped come alongside our district in a time of need where we do have a teacher shortage, and there are we want to be encouraging the teachers that are there, but also in Alachua, a lot of our mentor coaching staff have entered back into the classroom, and so we've been able to kind of come alongside our district and offer some additional mentoring and coaching support through this project and others.
Great, thank you, Rachel. So I know you're doing P3 additionally. So do you think that teachers or you will help to facilitate the Twitter chat to continue, or what's your thought on that? Teachers doing that on their
I mean, our goal is yes. I mean, I know there weren't as many teachers that participated as I think we were hoping, but the discussion was really great, and they had a lot of and actually, well, I'll tell you in a second. Bessie just texted me a couple things she wanted to add from a professional development standpoint. But for me, as someone who had really never participated or read, kind of been involved in any sort of Twitter chat where you're sort of live talking to one another, it was so interesting for me and kind of going and reading what they wrote. I mean, the conversations, because it was tied to a hashtag, are still there, and that, I think, is one of the things that's really neat is now those conversations are kind of up there for teachers to reference. And it is something that our district really does want to stick and to continue moving with, because it is a different way for teachers to engage with one another. And also, I mean, I've heard it said before, it's something that they can do. I think this one was done, I think, at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday night. And so it's something they can do relaxed at home while they're watching TV on the computer and still be participating in some more like a relaxed professional development environment. One of the things that Bessie wanted to make sure that we pointed out was that it's really something also, a lot of times when you design these programs, you think a lot about the newer teachers or the participating teachers that are being observed and how much they're going to learn from spending time with their peers. But something that we really, maybe one of the unanticipated benefits has been watching the exemplary teachers and to see how much it has helped them to kind of hone their craft and help them. I mean, I think anytime you get to a point where you're being asked questions about what the work that you're doing, it sharpens you, it makes you stronger. And so I think, so part of that, seeing them become stronger as teachers and also seeing them be proud to be recognized as exemplary teachers and really recognizing them. I think Bessie did a really great job of thinking about how we might recognize our exemplary teachers through this process and really wanting to make sure that their school and their principal was aware that they were participating in this program and that we were engaging with them. And that's something, next year they are really thinking about trying to build on this exemplary teacher kind of title, and while the teachers are still in the classroom, but trying to extend that so that they are working, kind of more getting more coaching. That's something that we've seen that the newer teachers really love the mentoring and the coaching aspect of the experience, and the exemplary teachers really love being asked. And so trying to provide experiences where they're getting paired up more often and experiencing more one-on-one or small group coaching is another thing that's going to come out of this.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate you sharing. Next, I want to ask Polk Education Foundation, Susan Copeland and Jessica Solano, if you're on, to talk about your foster teacher leadership project, your P3, and kind of how that shapes different things that are happening in your district. Susan and Jessica, are you on?
Yes, this is Jessica. I'm on. And I don't know if Susan's on too. And Susan, feel free to jump in whenever. So Christy and I are both, Christy Bassett and I are both Florida Teachers of the Year. And as part of that recognition, we were able to engage in different networks with other teachers who were very passionate about what they did. They were very solutions focused, and being around them really energized you, and it motivated you to continue making a larger impact. And we wanted to bring that to Polk County, not only to have this collaboration, but also to share the resources that we had discovered after being given this opportunity. So what we did is we went in to develop this teacher leadership opportunity where teachers were having a voice without having to leave the classroom. We put out an application process, and teachers had to apply to be in the program. And of course, we had put in if you were maybe a teacher of the year finalist, a high impact teacher, if you've done something with a teacher to teacher grants, or for whatever reason, they didn't have to have one of those achievements to get in. But we were really focused on finding those teachers in Polk County that were had a growth mindset and who were wanting to engage in something that's going to help them make a bigger impact beyond the walls of their classroom. So when we got together, we actually had 5 meetings, and we had 3 face-to-face meetings, 2 Twitter chat meetings. And the whole point of that was to first help them define what teacher leadership really means. And it has a wide variety of definitions, but having that as our foundation and realizing how important growth mindset and practice and feedback is was kind of our push in helping them just realize that you are in your classroom, but you don't have to keep your impact there. So we did that, and then we took really 2 major focus areas with our participants in our book studies. So we had one book study that was focused more on changing the culture at your school, and one that was focused more on peer-to-peer collaboration. So the participants were able to choose which one they wanted to spend most of their time studying, and then a lot of the information that was pulled from there was brought into more actionable activities. So we did something called problems of practice, where teachers would bring to the table problems that they were dealing with in their current work environment. And then instead of what typically happens is where we bring the problems and we're frustrated and we continue to stay in the problem, we had a protocol where the teachers would then come together and try to find a solution, an actionable, accountable solution for that teacher to take back. So they got exposed to the point of having collaboration versus collaboration, where coming together really is purposeful. So that was very, very powerful, and they continue to get a lot of different support, engaging in the Twitter chats and learning from each other. They just continue to feed off that energy, just like Christy and I had in our groups. So now the district has seen this, they've seen the impact that it's had, that our teachers that were participating were over and beyond saying how confident they felt now that they could have that impact. Some were saying that they wanted to go back and start implementing other programs, and that they just felt more valued and had the resources to go and do something and speak up and to start making a change. They really valued that. So our district has now seen that, and they've incorporated it into under human resources with a focus on retention. So what's really great about this, because we did do P3 last year, the year before this past year, we're now seeing how the 2 programs can feed into each other. So we have this group of teacher leaders who have gone through content that's with Richard DeFore, Michael Fullen, Lamav, TNTP, John Hattie. They have really great information and the tools to be a great teacher leader. And we're thinking we can take those teachers and funnel them in to be those mentors that we use in our P3 projects, and pulling in some of our newer teachers who are also wanting to grow and connecting them. We're also doing similar to, like Brevard was saying, with the teacher meetups. Next year, we're trying to do some affinity groups and bring in some of these teacher leaders to connect with our newer teachers. That way they feel like they're not in a silo in their classroom, so that they can connect with them and feel supported and heard. So that's really been the major thing. We use national teacher leadership standards developed by the National Network of State Teachers of the Year in Mount Holyoke College. And that way they were able to, just like we do in our classrooms, align what we're doing to specific standards. And we saw incredible growth there and how they evaluated themselves and their confidence level. And then at the end, we wrapped up with a final culminating project where the teachers developed an action plan that they were going to use in the upcoming school year. So they used all of their learning and brought it together, and it's actionable, and it is there's an accountability piece. So 5 days into the school year, they're going to have done this. 5 weeks into the school year, they would do another task. So they're really excited about it, and it's very inspiring to know that nearly 30 little projects are going on so that these teachers can have an impact beyond their classroom.
That's awesome, Jessica. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so this is, I'm sorry, go ahead, Tracy.
No, I was going to kind of turn it to you to kind of wrap it up with what we've learned overall, and maybe, you know, ask Susan Copeland to share that overall viewpoint of the program and these teacher development projects.
Absolutely, and we've heard some examples, and we heard specifically, well, from Jessica, but I do want to hear, Susan, your perspective, and Polk and Rachel and Alatra. And you know, folks are changing their investment with teachers, expanding their investments with teachers, figuring out how this fits in with the other work they're doing with teachers, all of that with the Education Foundation. Also, bridging relationships with the Professional Development Department. We heard that. So I dare say that I don't think that Rachel was having conversations really with that department a couple years ago until she embarked on this journey. I also know the story in Polk that it was, you know, 2 years into Polk Education Foundation really providing some venture capital to try these approaches with motivated teachers of the year who were eager to help and their colleagues in their home district learn and grow. And it was 2 years of that, and then sharing that, you know, at a school board meeting I heard, and we heard something similar up in Santa Rosa County, that in debrief sessions, the superintendent and the professional development or HR person, I don't remember which, at the district leaned over and said, we need to be doing more of this. So I think what we've learned really is it's informing the approach of education foundations that they might add to their menu of offerings for teachers, or think about how they might have an exponential impact beyond, let's say, investing with one teacher or even teacher to teacher, where someone does a project and shares it with another, that it's more broad and potentially more impactful. And then we're seeing some shift in behavior on the district level with a few districts as well. So we really do think this has been a really neat opportunity, and I want to open it up on this next slide to get Susan and Rachel and anyone else. I don't know if we can open up the lines, Chris, to tell us, for those of you who participated so far, what's next? What do you
things that, you know, as we think about, I know I kind of mentioned this a little bit more previously when I was talking, is really what we're hearing and what's next is more one-on-one intentional coaching and training. That's really what we want to do, is provide a space for our exemplary teacher leaders to really be spending time with these younger, more novice teachers, and maybe giving them chances to go, like, have the novice teachers be observed by the exemplary teachers, and you know, provide them with feedback, and really try to develop those teacher leaders even more, but then also just really allowing our teachers to continue collaborating across the district.
Thank you, Rachel.
And this is Linda again in Brevard. What we would like to do and plan to do is to continue the teacher meetups, because it was so valuable. Each of the meetup groups was about 10 people, so 10 people to one of our facilitators, again, former teachers of the year. And it really was an opportunity for those new teachers to connect not only with the group of new teachers and peers, but also have mentoring opportunities with that facilitator. And each of those facilitators really, really took it on and said, I'm here for you. They visited the classrooms. They were just another level of support above and beyond our mentors and our peer coaches in our district. So really looking forward to continuing that opportunity across the district and opening it up to even more teachers this year. Hi,
Amy
this
and Collier?
Yes, thank you. This is Amy, and I would say, just overwhelmingly the positive response of teachers that participated in P3. Some of those teachers were also part of our Golden Apple process this year, so we had a teacher of distinction from 55 of our 57 schools in Collier County, and in addition to just going through our standard Golden Apple process this year, we had them doing some professional development if they wanted to. It was voluntary to meet each other and learn about those best practices. And the ones that had also participated in P3 said, we want to do the same thing for all of these teacher of distinction best practices. We want to visit every single one of these classrooms. So that's a big project, but and something we won't be able to do in the exact way that they want to, but we're looking at ways to do that. All of the current projects we're doing with teachers can all in some way bring in an element of the P3 style. So we're looking at how to incorporate that.
Excellent. Susan, are you there? Susan Copeland? Somehow we don't have Susan. Okay, anyone else, a question for anybody who's shared? And certainly Radha, Key, Kate, any questions you have from folks on the line?
Not for me.
Okay. In terms of what's next for us from the consortium, one of the things we did besides funding these pilot projects, and you've already heard, we'll be able to fund some this coming year with Wells Fargo, in terms of the sort of the broader teacher communities with foster teacher leadership. We also, and we'll be rolling out a new partner program with Florida Power and Light in their service territory that is branded to them with empowering STEM teachers, and it is focused on math and science teachers, but it is exactly what we learned from P3, from that initial pilot project, but just focusing it more on their service territory in Florida. And also they're asking us to consider cross-district collaboration, particularly in the rural areas where teachers might travel across district lines and learn from others in their service territory, and again, focus it on math and science. So they are providing $100,000 through us, and we'll be going through an RFP process to our eligible members as well. And I think that's really meaningful to me to think about. Really, it's now, like I said, part of our lexicon that we can provide these type of opportunities for our members to help teachers learn and grow, that you all can take the model and adapt it and replicate it and scale it on your own. Although good luck with 55 schools, that sounds like really ambitious, Amy. It's also informing the district's approach and causing them to maybe take a fresh look. We heard anecdotally, I think it was in Pinellas, that because the program was so well received, and we stuck our nose into, hey, can we do this type of work? How do I work with you? How do we structure this? We have the funds to pay for things that are sometimes barriers, like transportation and substitutes, et cetera. We're providing the structure, the space, and the time. And in some instances, the district then immediately said, you know what, if you've gone this far, we can find some funds and help with the rest, or help with substitutes. And in some instances, that just happened right away. Sometimes between observation day 1 and 2 and 3, there was able to expand and grow the effort because people were already seeing how well received it was. So, and then of course us continuing to learn from you and from one another. We will have those funding opportunities this coming year with Wells Fargo and Florida Power and Light. And we also hope, many of you have gotten to know Mandy Clark, who has been working through the Jacksonville Public Education Fund, and really focused on helping teachers improve their practice and grow in order to help improve instructional outcomes with students and full implementation of the Florida standards. And we've learned a lot there. We've shared other resources with that teacher leadership group, and we're hoping that in some shape, if there's interest among our members, that we'll continue that this year. So, you know, it could be a matter of you all learning from each other. You know, Brevard's teacher meetup model is very different than what's happening up in Santa Rosa, et cetera. But there's certainly learnings that could be shared among you all about practices and new resources that could be introduced from other partners, or Jessica, certainly the Teacher Lead Network and Kelly Zunkowitz and the Florida Department of Education has offered us some resources or some food for thought and programs that could be replicated or adapted on the local level. So to be continued, but really very grateful to our partners, starting with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for saying, hey, what if you guys thought about helping teachers learn and improve and grow, and what your place in that work might look like through your network? What starting point do you have through local education foundations? And I will admit that when we were issued that challenge a couple of years ago, and as a non-educator, you know, it felt like, you know, just a totally new work for us. It really was a different thing. Most of us have been very accustomed to reviewing grant applications and funding grant opportunities, but the idea of stepping into teachers learning from one another was brand new. So that leap of faith, though, I'm happy to say is paying off in lots of ways. We'll be compiling a formal report of this work supported by both of these wonderful partners. And we also have a paper that is in your with the meeting slides today. It is there for you to download as a PDF. It's just a 4-page paper to take a look at and share some more ideas and kind of explain what our journey in this space has looked like over the past couple of years. And we hope that'll be an ongoing resource. So thank you to everyone for sharing today. We will get you a recording, a link out to this hour plus together. And we really, again, thank you to Wells Fargo and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for encouraging us to step into the teacher leadership and develop arena. Thank you.